Hi everyone. This is a really brief sort of informational video about my upcoming program, which is called ReClaim, the Heroine's Journey. So today in this video, I want to talk about sort of where this came from. So where in my personal life is this program born from? Because it seems to me everything I teach comes from something that I've gone through personally or am going through personally. I want to talk about how you might know if this program is right for you, speaking to you. I want to point out that this program is, even though it's called the Heroine's Journey, it's not just for women. As I'll get into a little bit, the way we navigate major life transitions and this need to integrate our masculine and our feminine energies really applies to everyone, no matter what your gender identification is. So even though it's called the Heroine's Journey, it really might be applicable to anyone. I want to give you a little bit clearer vision of what are the steps of the Heroine Journey. So where are we going to traverse in this 6-month program? And then last but not least, we'll talk a little bit about what we're going to do, cost, all of that. So that's what to expect for this next little bit. So it was almost exactly a year ago, so it was August 2021, that I had a pretty intense awakening that happened for me. So, and as I was preparing to do this meeting, I did this meeting live first about a week ago and forgot to push record, which is why I'm re-recording now. But prior to that meeting, I'd gone back to my journals, and I keep these like big black sketch pads as my journals. And I was really curious about when I'd had this, what I call this initiation with goddess energy. And I was actually shocked to find out it was just a year ago, because it feels like so much has happened to me in terms of this topic in this last year. But it was just about a year ago. And so we're still sort of coming out of the pandemic in August 2021. And I think similar to many people, my pandemic was really challenging. It was challenging balancing work and home. It was challenging homeschooling my children. I also talked a lot during the pandemic more generally about how the pandemic was a pressure cooker, and everything sort of for people came up to the surface, and we had this opportunity to either look at it or sort of numb it out. And one of the big things that came up to the surface for me was issues around my relationship, my marriage, that weren't working, and sort of dysfunctional patterning that we'd been in for a long time. And so there was just a lot of this churning. And I was in a pretty dark place. End of August for me always tends to be my hardest time of the year. So I've learned from Ayurveda, which is the sister science to yoga, that my body constitution tends to feel more anxiety at the transition between summer and fall. So I've known now for many years that this is a rough time of year for me. So a wise mentor that I've had gratefully had in my life for a very long time, last year around this time knew that I was really struggling, and she said, why don't you come and let's do a little bit of meditation, 4 directions kind of work, and see if you can shift something. And so I went to this mentor's home, and we did this beautiful, quite long meditation. And during the meditation, I had this very visceral experience of my heart just boom, expanding open. Just like a huge warmth that kind of came in. And I also felt this energy sort of from behind come and support me. And then into my left ear, I heard a very clear message, almost as if someone was speaking to me. And basically the message was, Betsy, everything you're worried about right now, doesn't really matter. All you need to know is that you are here in service to the divine feminine. You are here in service to the goddess energy. And I remember feeling, again, there had been this heart opening, this warmth, this feeling of energy behind me. And it was such a sort of ineffable experience to put into words. Even at this moment, a year later, with all of my understanding of maybe what it meant. But it was very powerful, and it did shift something for me. So the sort of intense overwhelm I'd felt about my personal life really shifted. And what it did for me is it sort of threw me into this deep study of, well, what does that mean? And in fact, I read in my journal. This all happened on August 7 of 2021. And about 10 days later, I wrote in my journal, like, what does this mean? And I had a couple bullet points. At the time, what it meant to me was, well, I think it means I take no shit and I do no harm. I live a more natural, instinctive life. I follow the truth. I trust my intuition more. I have more downtime. I become more reclusive with less fluffy activities that drain me. I don't know about that word fluffy, but more writing and more dancing. So 10 days after this experience, that is sort of what came through for me. And then in true Betsy fashion, what I did is I like dove in deep, right? So I bought every book I could find on the divine feminine and the goddess. I took 3 separate courses on the goddess and really tried to understand, well, what does this mean? What does being in service to the divine feminine mean? So as I'm doing all of this, I also can feel in the back of my head like, oh, this is something that's going to be really important for me to teach about. Teaching about reclaiming our divine feminine, working with women. This is going to be really important. So I sort of knew that there would be some kind of course that was going to come out about. For a long time, I was like, this is a goddess course. We're going to like study the goddess and all the different faces of the goddess. So then fast forward 9 months. So like I'm in the depths of like really diving into the goddess and the feminine and what that means. And just this past May, so just 3 months ago, I went on a sort of meditation, yoga, shamanic energy retreat. And I arrive at this retreat. It's a very small, sort of intimate retreat. And much to my surprise, it was mostly men at this retreat, which in my 20 years of going to retreats, it's never happened. It's almost always primarily women that are at these things. And so on the very first day of this retreat, like I got really triggered very quickly. I was in a yoga class being taught by one of the male instructors. He adjusted one of the only other female person there with me. And she let out a big scream and then, kind of went into this trauma thing. And so he put us all in a child's pose as he's working with her. And I feel like all this like grief, sobbing starting to come. And I'm just crying for this woman, but really I'm crying for myself and crying about like the story I started to tell myself is, well, here's a man and he's adjusting a woman's body without asking permission and she gets injured and this isn't fair. And so it was a really big moment for me. And I remember being so angry and going to one of the other female instructors there and saying, I'm so angry about this. And I don't like being here with all these men. I don't trust men. I don't want to be here. And that was why I was there. I was there to really do some very deep healing work about my inner masculine. So every human carries feminine energy and masculine energy. This has nothing to do with our gender. Unfortunately, we believe masculine equals man, feminine energy equals female, but we all carry these, what we would call somewhat opposite but intermixed energies. And so what I realized in that week-long retreat is that my inner masculine was quite toxic. Being raised in a patriarchal culture, being raised as a woman that to get ahead you have to sort of be in competition and work hard and work harder and get good grades and get ahead, that I had sort of embodied a lot of masculine qualities that actually were somewhat toxic for me. And the ones, that I really had to come face to face with that week were competition and judgment and condemnation, over control, pushing past my own limits. And in addition to sort of coming face to face with those internal constructs or qualities that I had taken on, I was living with a lot of pain in the right side of my body. And the right side of the body is the masculine side. The left side is the feminine side. So I was having all this pain in my SI joint and my right hip. So through the course of this week, I did so much healing with the beautiful men on this retreat. I'm so grateful for those men because they taught me so much about my inner masculine. So I did all this healing on my masculine side, and I came home and I'm like, well, I can't teach a goddess class. The goddess class is all about the feminine, right? And now I'm realizing like we need to have this balanced masculine and this balanced feminine. And so if I just teach about the feminine, I'm actually encouraging people to be misbalanced. So that was my thought process. And then I settled into the 10 tour program and really figuring out, okay, what direction are we going to go? What are we going to teach? And in that, I came across, again, a book called The Heroine's Journey by Maureen Murdoch. And this is a book I'd read quite a while ago. It was published in 1990. And in that book, she sets out the heroine's journey. And it was literally the journey that I'd been on in the last year. This reclaiming the feminine, balancing the masculine. And I was like, boom, this is it. This is what I need to teach. This is what helps people learn to bring together their masculine and their feminine in a much more balanced way. So I want to show you a couple slides. So it's called ReClaim, and this is a 6-month journey. It's going to start right around the fall equinox and end right around the spring equinox. So the reason I really like this time of year is it's the darkest time of year, right? So we're really moving into very short days, much more dark. And this program is actually about helping us move into our shadow, move into the parts of ourselves that are unclaimed, right? We need to reclaim. We need to reconnect to the parts that we've pushed down into the depths, into the dark, and bring them up to the light. So I really like this time of year. Just feels like the ideal time of year to work in the matter that we're going to work. So these are some questions to pose to yourself and to see how they resonate with you. Recently in your life, I guess before I go into these questions, I want to point out that I don't think we just have one heroine's journey. I think there are many periods of our life where we might go through a heroine's journey process. So these are some questions that might make you think about, am I in this process of needing to reclaim some parts of myself? So, have you felt trapped in a box lately? Do you sense that you're somehow out of sync with yourself? Do you have a sense that you're not able to really change or affect what's happening around you? Do you feel like you're stuck in a situation with diminishing returns? It's not really helping you anymore. Do activities that used to hold value and interest suddenly just feel way less satisfying? And I think the big question is, do you ask yourself, like, is this it? Is this it professionally? Is this it in my relationship? Is this it with, how I spend my spare time? Could life be more beautiful, more true, more real than it feels like it is right now? So these are all questions that I think I was really struggling and bouncing up against in the pandemic. And if I'm truly honest with all of you, probably in the 7 years prior to that as well. So for me, I think this heroine's journey, I sort of started in on it around my 40th birthday, and then sort of went numb again for a little bit. And then the pandemic really brought it all back up to the forefront for me. So the heroine's journey, most people have heard of the hero's journey, which Joseph Campbell sort of coined this term in the 1940s, wrote about it in his book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. And then, it's become sort of a pillar, that book, or this idea of the hero's journey, for writers, because it's every great story, the Star Wars epic, Harry Potter, all these, big epic storylines match up really well with the hero's journey. Well, in 1990, Maureen Murdoch, who was actually a student of Joseph Campbell, said, I don't actually think that the hero's journey works for women. She went to Joseph Campbell and said, I think I'd like to propose that there's a heroine's journey. It's different than the hero's journey. And at the time, Joseph Campbell essentially said to her that, he believed that women don't really need to make the hero's journey because they are in the place that everyone is trying to get to, that the men are trying to get to. And Maureen Murdoch was pretty dissatisfied with this answer from Joseph Campbell and said, I think I'm going to, dive into this and sort of conceptualize what this looks like for a woman. And then she herself was a therapist and sort of then spent the next 20, 30 years really seeking, is this what women are talking about? And what I want to bring in is that, again, I think the heroine's journey is super relevant, in many ways more relevant than the hero's journey. The hero's journey is basically based on a very individualistic nature, whereas the heroine's journey is, there's a little bit more of a collectivist bent to it, and also this need to go in and down. So the feminine journey requires that we actually go deep down into our soul and we reclaim parts of ourselves that we have left, right? The way we've disconnected from our truth is what we have to heal. And so again, I think that this need to go in and down, the hero's journey tends to go out into the world, where the heroine's journey is like, no, we have to go in and down. At this juncture point in history, I think is necessary for everyone, whether you identify as feminine or as woman, as man, as trans. It seems to me that we all need to figure out how to heal this wounded feminine that's in all of us, and how to find a more balanced masculine perspective, and then to integrate both of them. So this is really how the heroine's journey is different. Again, it's healing the wounded feminine part of us and figuring out where we have disconnected from our truth so we can reclaim all the parts of self. So there are many different sort of phases to the heroine's journey. I'm not going to go into these in great depth, but I want to touch on them because you might, again, really see yourself in one of these stages already in your life. So the first stage is that we have to separate from the feminine. And how this often shows up is that we, to get ahead in a patriarchal culture, we have to lessen our dependence on our feminine qualities, such as our intuition and our softness and our emotional bodies and our bodies in general. The body is the feminine. And we actually have to start to identify with the masculine. We have to identify with taking action, competition, getting ahead, moving towards, to be able to compete, to find a job, to make a paycheck, right? So for our whole culture, we are very disconnected from the feminine, because the feminine in a patriarchal culture isn't held to the high esteem that the masculine is. So we separate from the feminine, we over-identify with the masculine, and we actually tend to have some success. So whether you're a man or a woman, if we play by the rule book of the patriarchal culture, we may find success. We may find monetary success. We may find that we get respect of our peers, of the culture. We follow the rules. But then what Maureen Murdoch pointed out so poignantly is there comes a point in one's life where, despite the material success, there's something which she calls spiritual aridity. We feel just kind of a little dead inside, right? We feel like, is this it? So I got the house, I got the kids, I got the job, I got the car, I got the dog. Why do I feel so empty? Why don't I feel more joy? Why don't I feel more contentment? What's wrong with me? So this period of spiritual aridity, where we just feel sort of dried out, is really where some of the initiation of this whole journey begins. And so again, for me, I can see how I did separate from my feminine qualities, and I did find professional success. And I did enjoy that until about the age of 40, when I got an autoimmune disorder. I found that spiritual aridity. I felt dried out. I feel exhausted. I questioned everything. Why am I doing this? Does anything have any meaning? What's the point of all of this? So that was really, I think, when I probably had the first possibility to descend down to the goddess, which is sort of step 5 here. And for many reasons unknown to me, that didn't fully happen, right? It happened in certain ways, but in other ways it didn't. I think I actually got really sidetracked for a good period of time. And it wasn't until middle of pandemic, a couple years ago, that I really started to have this descent down to the goddess. So what does this mean? And we'll get into all the depths of this, but I love this. We have to start to go deep and reclaim our shadow. The feminine, the goddess is in the shadows. The feminine energy lies in the dark. So we have to do what I would call shadow work. We have to get to know our unconscious. We have to look at our dreams. We have to daydream a little bit more. We have to rest more. We have to really start to seek our answers in things other than logic and the rational left brain. We have to really start to bridge over into our right creative brain and start to vision a little bit more about, like, what do I want? What is this life? Why am I here? What is it all about? So when we actually descend to the goddess and we begin to tap into the great power, the feminine energy is so powerful. It's actually the creator energy. It creates worlds, creates humans, right? When we start to descend down into that, make peace with it, embrace it, see it, love it, respect it, we start to heal sometimes our mother wound, our sister wound. We start to heal our wound to the feminine. And then from there, we can then heal our masculine wound as well. So sort of how I started this whole conversation, I see how I went through that. I had to start with healing my inner feminine. I had to re-engage my connection to my own intuition, into my heart, into my emotional state, to my inner instincts. That had to come first before I could, this past May, start to really look at my masculine and be like, yeah, it's out of whack. Why am I working so hard? Why am I why am I pushing past my limits? Why aren't I resting enough, right? And really trying to heal both the masculine and the feminine. And then when that happens, then we can return. And then we have this capacity to share a more balanced version of ourselves with our family, with our workplace, with ourselves, with the world. So here are the details if you are like, this is speaking to me. I need this right now. I'm calling it a 6-month journey of reclamation. We're reclaiming the parts of yourself that you've shoved down. There will be parts that you will discover you didn't even know you pushed down. This for sure happened to me in the last couple of years. There are parts of myself I had no idea were there. And as I worked with my dreams, as I worked with hypnosis, as I worked with my shadow, I'm able to finally see and reclaim. So I feel inherently more whole because of this work. So in this 6-month journey, we will do weekly meetings. There'll be a weekly live call every Monday night. There'll be new content. There'll be experiential exercises, embodiment exercises. In addition to those weekly sort of calls and check-ins, this will all be online. You'll also get access to the 2 yoga classes I teach every week. It'll be a part of the price. We'll do a Q&A call, meaning you have a chance to ask questions live and to, sort of be in community and hear people's responses. There will also be add-on opportunities to do a group with me. So I will do no more than 10 people in a group. And if you're local, we may choose to do the group live and in person. So we do it in the yoga studio. If you are out of state, you'll be placed in a group with other people that want to do more of an online group. They both work beautifully. I've led online groups. I've led online discussions. It's amazing how phenomenal this Zoom platform really does work in terms of our connections. You will also have the opportunity to add on one-on-one sessions with me. Again, it's not a part of the course, but if you choose, I get something out of having more personal contact with Betsy. You'll have that opportunity, right? You'll have that opportunity. And this is something I really sat with. Should I open this? I don't really take on new clients anymore. But I felt like there's something really powerful about doing some one-on-one sessions to really help people get clear on where am I in this hero journey? What's my intention? How do I want to move through it? So I wanted to offer that opportunity if people are interested in it. So here is what you can do now. There's an early bird deposit, meaning you don't have to pay the full price. But if you pay the deposit between now and, let me tell you the date, Monday, the 22nd of August, so in about a week, I will only be offering limited numbers for that group and for that individual session. So you'll be first on the list if that's something you want to add on. And if you choose to pay in full now, so the full program is $14.97, you will get between now and when we start on September 19 a 30-minute one-on-one call with me to already sort of get clear on why am I doing this? What's my intention? What do I want to get out of this? So for me to help guide you a little bit, guide your intention setting, guide your clarity. So if you pay in full now, you'll get one of those sessions with me in the next month. So I'm going to add in the notes of this video, as well as in the email that you got with this video attached, I'll add where you can go in and sign up for this, or just put in that deposit to at least get you a spot in the program. If you have questions, please reach out, info@heartlandyoga.com. Would love to answer it. But would really love to see some of you joining me in this heroine's journey. I know myself that I still have a lot to learn, and so I'm really excited to dive in to the content, the sort of map of all of this. But more than that, I learned so much by hearing other people's stories, by doing this in community, by knowing that we're not alone. As I reflect over that period of time of the pandemic, there were many times I felt alone just because of social distancing, and how much I would have benefited from having a group of like-minded souls saying, hey, I'm going through this too. Hey, I'm descending down. Hey, I'm feeling X, Y, and Z. So I really am such a firm believer that we heal in community in a way faster and more efficiently than when we heal individually on our own. So I feel a great call to create community and to create sort of groups and to create situations where people can come together and be real and authentic and really dive in to do the inner work so that we can all feel more free, more authentic, more real, and hopefully, be able to enjoy our life a little bit more. So thanks for listening, and love to see some of you join me.